The night sky over Chicago was deceptively calm. Streetlights shimmered against the dark river, skyscrapers stood like silent sentinels, and the city thrummed with the usual hum of traffic and late-night life. But above the clouds, high in the void of space, something ancient and terrible had arrived. Sleek, black vessels hovered silently, their surfaces catching the faint glimmers of Earth's scattered light. There was no sound, no rumble of engines, no sign of movement, only an overwhelming sense of inevitability, as if the planet had been marked for judgment. Dr. Emily Parker, senior astrophysicist at the Global Defense Observatory, hunched over a monitor, her eyes scanning streams of data that now made no sense. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. The instruments, normally precise, predictable, unyielding, had gone haywire. Lines of code flickered like flames on a dying fire, and then the screens went black. For a heartbeat, the world paused. And then, across every screen in the observatory, in homes, offices, schools, and public squares, a broadcast began. It was not a message of peace, nor a declaration of war. It was an exhibition. Humans, a voice resonated, deep, metallic, impossible to localize. It vibrated directly in the mind, bypassing ears entirely. 10 million of your kind shall fall today. Watch. Emily felt the words strike like a physical blow. Her hand flew to her mouth, but the nausea was not only from shock, it was from the impossible reality of what she was seeing. The screens flickered images that could not be mistaken for simulation. Cities collapsed. Entire neighborhoods vanished in seconds. Cars froze mid-street, their occupants frozen mid-scream, then disintegrated into nothing. Bridges twisted into molten ribbons. Skyscrapers evaporated. 10 million people gone, and the camera angles, impossible in their precision, followed every second of it. Michael Reynolds, her assistant, stood behind her, eyes wide and unblinking. "Dr. Parker, is this real?" he asked, voice trembling. Emily didn't respond. She could only stare at the feeds, unable to comprehend the scale. 10 million lives snuffed out in a matter of minutes. Entire nations reduced to echoes. And as the broadcast continued, the world outside the streets, the cities, the towns reacted in the only way humans knew how, with chaos. Sirens blared. Car alarms shrieked. Phones rang endlessly. People ran blindly into the streets, only to find that nothing could save them from the unfolding horror. On a family's TV in Brooklyn, a child's wide eyes reflected the images of destruction while his parents clutched each other, their screams drowned out by the broadcast. In Tokyo, office workers froze at their desks, staring at screens that showed their own streets being obliterated. Across the globe, the response was unanimous: panic, disbelief, and helplessness. The Wraith, or whatever they were, did not simply destroy. They displayed. Every explosion, every second of human suffering, was framed, recorded, and broadcasted. They were not merely an invading force, they were curators of death, artists of annihilation, and the world watched in helpless awe. Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard, opening communication channels, sending out distress signals, hacking, pleading, anything. This isn't the end. We have weapons. We can. Before she could finish, the broadcast shifted. One of the alien figures appeared in the feed. Towering, angular, metallic, and terrifyingly alien, it seemed impossible to describe in human terms. Limbs twisted in geometries that defied logic, eyes or voids where eyes should be glimmered with intelligence and malice. It spoke again, not with sound, but directly into minds. Your retaliation is irrelevant. Your extinction is inevitable. Continue to watch. Emily stumbled back from the console, heart pounding in her chest. Michael collapsed into a chair, muttering prayers under his breath. Outside the observatory, the hum of the city had gone silent. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes, it was impossible to tell. Time became meaningless when your species was being slaughtered in real time. Screens around the world continued to relay the broadcast, humans disappearing in ways that violated every law of physics and biology known to mankind. Every survivor felt it in their bones, a deep, unshakable terror that this was not merely war, but something beyond comprehension. Emily, however, noticed something peculiar. Amid the perfection of the alien broadcast, the Wraith seemed confident. Arrogant. Flawless, yes, but arrogance, she realized, often carried a flaw. If their technology could erase 10 million humans with perfect precision, perhaps it was also predictable. Perhaps they hadn't accounted for unpredictability. Her mind raced. Michael, listen, she whispered, urgency creeping into her voice. They're recording everything. Every reaction, every fear. They think they understand us. But they don't. If we can manipulate what they're seeing, if we can exploit their arrogance, maybe, just maybe, we have a chance. Michael looked at her, disbelief written across his face. Are you saying we can fight back? Against that? Emily's eyes burned with grim determination. I don't know. But doing nothing isn't an option. Not after this. The broadcast looped endlessly, a reminder that the world was no longer in control. Humanity was on display, dissected for amusement or study, and every second was a testament to the power of the Wraith. Yet, for the first time since the broadcast began, Emily felt a spark, not hope, not optimism, but defiance. If the Wraith wanted to make a show of humanity's extinction, they had underestimated the one thing no algorithm could predict: human ingenuity, human courage, and the irrational, unyielding will to survive. Emily leaned over the console again, typing rapidly, her mind racing ahead. We need to move fast. We can't outfight them, at least, not yet. But maybe we can outthink them. If we exploit their arrogance, if we turn their own technology against them. Michael swallowed hard. You really think that will work? Emily didn't answer. She couldn't allow herself doubt. Not now. Not when 10 million lives had been extinguished before the world's eyes. The broadcast was still playing, the Wraith's message ringing in every mind: witness your extinction. And Emily Parker, her fingers poised over the keyboard, made a silent vow: humanity would not simply die quietly. Humanity would fight back. Humanity would survive. The night outside continued its quiet, deceptive calm. But in that observatory, a storm was brewing, a storm born not of alien firepower, but of human resolve. And somewhere in the void, the Wraith did not yet realize that their audience was not finished watching. Because humanity, even on the brink of annihilation, had just begun to strike back. The desert wind swept across the Nevada wastelands, carrying the sharp tang of dust and ozone from the military base's power generators. Beneath the surface, in a sprawling underground complex carved into the rock, humanity's last hope for retaliation was taking shape. The remnants of the U.S. Space Defense Force had converged here, a network of engineers, scientists, and military strategists working feverishly to turn terror into action. General Robert Bob Hastings stood in the center of the command room, his hands clasped behind his back. Lines of stress carved deep into his weathered face, yet his stance radiated the calm authority of a man who had stared death in the eye more times than he cared to count. His eyes scanned the holographic projections that floated above the table: the alien fleet, the 10 million deaths, the cities destroyed, all reduced to intricate data points, every one of them a testament to the devastation wrought by the Wraith. This, Hastings said, voice low but resonant, is not just a battle for survival. It's a battle for the very soul of humanity. And we're behind the 8 ball. Beside him, Commander Lee Sing-Gwin adjusted her headset, her gaze fixed on the projections. She was one of the few who had seen combat both in space and on Earth, and though her hands trembled slightly, the intensity in her eyes betrayed no hesitation. Sir, if we can disrupt their quantum resonance, we might not be able to destroy their ships directly, but we could make them vanish. Hastings' brow furrowed. Make them vanish? You mean erase them? Precisely, Nguyen replied. It's not conventional warfare. We can't match their firepower or their physics-defying tech head-on. But we might be able to exploit what Dr. Parker discovered. Emily Parker entered the command room, dragging a device no larger than a small suitcase. It hummed faintly, a low, almost musical vibration, and the soft glow of its interface bathed her face in greenish light. Michael Reynolds followed, pale but determined, carrying auxiliary equipment. This is the Phoenix Protocol, Emily said, setting the device on the central console. Her voice was tight with urgency.
It's a quantum resonance manipulator.
We feed it into the global communications network, and it'll target the Wraith's molecular structure, their physiology, everything that makes them exist.
Hastings' eyes narrowed. And the risk? Emily hesitated, swallowing.
If the calculations are off, we could destabilize the device's output.
In other words, we could erase ourselves along with them.
Or worse, we could do nothing at all, and the Wraith will still be out there, waiting for a second attempt.
Michael cleared his throat, breaking the heavy silence. It's all or nothing.
Lisa's voice was calm but deadly serious.
Then we go all in.
Humanity's survived worse.
We can't hesitate now.
The room erupted into controlled chaos, technicians monitoring every data stream, programmers running simulations at breakneck speed, engineers adjusting the resonance frequencies, recalculating trajectories, ensuring that the Phoenix protocol would hit its target precisely.
The clock ticked down.
Every second was a reminder of the 10 million lives that had been lost, a horrifying motivation to get it right. Emily and Michael interfaced the device with the communications network, fingers moving in a synchronized frenzy. Emily's voice cut through the tension, calm but intense. We're going live in 30 seconds.
Global relay is ready. All satellites synced. Quantum resonance field active. This is humanity's one shot. Let's make it count. The command room held its collective breath as the countdown hit 0. Emily initiated the Phoenix protocol.
A ripple of energy, invisible to the human eye, shot outward from the device, flowing through fiber optic cables, radio waves, satellite signals, and every digital network that touched the globe. The signal reached the Wraith fleet in the void of space, invisible yet unstoppable, targeting their structure on a scale that defied comprehension.
At first, nothing happened. The Wraith ships remained suspended like black monoliths, unmoved and impervious. The broadcast still looped their slaughter, the alien voice still echoing, "Witness your extinction." Emily's pulse quickened.
It has to work, she muttered under her breath. And then, subtle at first, came the flicker.
One of the alien vessels shimmered like a mirage in the heat of a desert afternoon. Its surface pulsed, distorting, bending in ways that defied physical logic.
The technicians gasped.
Another ship wavered. Then another.
One by one, they began to flicker, as if reality itself was rejecting them.
Michael's hands shook as he typed furiously. They're destabilizing. It's actually working.
Hastings' face broke into a grim smile.
Good. Keep it steady.
But the protocol demanded perfection. Emily's voice rose above the hum of machinery, issuing rapid-fire commands.
Adjust the resonance. Compensate for feedback loops. Focus on molecular coherence. Now.
The Wraith fleet began to unravel. Ships that had once appeared indestructible blinked in and out of existence, their forms collapsing into particles that vanished into nothingness. The broadcast abruptly cut off mid-sentence, leaving a silence so profound that the command room seemed to echo with it. Outside the base, the world held its breath.
Across continents, screens went black.
Millions of humans, survivors and witnesses alike, stared at their monitors, waiting, praying that this miracle was real.
And then, slowly, one by one, lights flickered back.
Cities that had survived the initial slaughter began to stir.
Humanity had endured. Humanity had struck back.
Emily sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face.
Michael knelt beside her, voice choked. We did it. They're gone. Hastings placed a hand on her shoulder. Yes.
But victory always comes with a price.
The universe has seen what we're capable of now. That arrogance, that confidence they had?
It's gone, yes, but it leaves a shadow. Other species out there might take note. Lisa Nguyen stared at the viewport overlooking the desert night, her jaw tight.
Do you think it's over?
Emily shook her head slowly.
I don't know. But if they or anyone like them ever come back, we'll be ready.
This was the first strike.
Not the last.
The Phoenix protocol, dangerous and untested, had worked, exploiting the arrogance of the Wraith in ways they could not have predicted. Humanity had faced extinction and, through ingenuity, courage, and risk, had turned the tables on an invincible enemy. But the victory was tinged with an eerie silence. 10 million lives were gone, and the memory of that broadcast, every scream, every flicker of terror, would haunt humanity for generations. Cities were still in ruin, and the survivors carried the weight of what had been witnessed. The scars would never heal completely, but the defiance would endure. Emily Parker, exhausted yet resolute, looked around at the command room. For the first time in days, she allowed herself a brief moment of triumph. Humanity had not only survived, it had struck back. And in the empty void where the Wraith once hovered, there was now nothing but the cold emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, beyond human perception, other forces might be watching. But they would soon learn the same lesson: humanity was not a species to be underestimated. In that moment, the base, the desert, the world itself, seemed to hold its breath, aware of something profound, against impossible odds, against a species that had erased 10 million lives before the eyes of the world. Humans had fought back and survived. And in that survival, a spark was born. One that would light the path of humanity's future, a future where no threat, however vast or incomprehensible, could ever extinguish the human spirit. The first light of dawn over the Nevada desert was brittle, pale, and hesitant, as though the world itself had been through a night too long to bear. The devastation was not visible here in the base underground, shielded by steel and stone, but the weight of loss hung like a storm cloud over every human present. 10 million lives had been erased from existence. Cities across the globe were scars in the landscape, monuments to suffering. Humanity had survived, but at what cost? Dr. Emily Parker emerged from the subterranean command center, the hum of machinery fading behind her. The desert wind tugged at her hair, stinging her face with grit. Michael Reynolds followed, silent, exhausted, carrying the remnants of the Phoenix Protocol device. They walked together through the open desert, the silence stretching between them like a vast, unbroken canvas. The broadcast, Michael whispered finally, voice raw, people saw everything. Can humanity even survive knowing that? Emily's gaze drifted toward the horizon, toward the jagged peaks that framed the desert sky. We survived because we acted. Because we refused to give in to despair. But yes, the memory of it will haunt us. That's inevitable. 10 million lives gone. And the world watched. General Robert Hastings appeared behind them, moving with the slow, measured pace of a man who had learned patience in the crucible of war. The broadcast was more than just terror. It was a statement. A challenge. The Wraith believed in their perfection, in their invincibility. And now they're gone. Emily turned to him sharply. Gone, but will it last? What if there are others? What if they were just the beginning? Hastings' face was hard, carved from decades of confrontation with death. Then we'll be ready. Humanity has learned a lesson the hard way. The universe won't underestimate us again. In the underground base, the surviving leaders of the world gathered in a secure chamber. Representatives of every continent, every nation that had survived the initial assault, huddled around holographic projections of cities, landscapes, and remnants of the Wraith fleet. General Hastings addressed them via satellite feed. We've won a battle, he said, voice echoing through the chamber. Not just a battle against alien invaders, but a battle for the survival of our species. Let it be known, humanity endures. Humanity strikes back. And humanity will not fall quietly again. The applause was muted, tempered by grief, but it carried a weight of resolve that electrified the room. Survivors looked around at one another, faces etched with sorrow and determination. They knew the dead would never return, but their sacrifice had given the living a chance to rebuild, to endure, to ensure the survival of human civilization. Emily Parker returned to her office, alone this time. The monitors were dark, the hum of the Phoenix Protocol silent. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, to let the enormity of their victory and the enormity of their loss sink in. 10 million names would never be spoken aloud again, 10 million futures snuffed out in a broadcast meant to terrify. And yet, the very act of survival had forged a new determination in humanity, a reminder that even in the face of annihilation, life fought back.
Across the world, cities began tentative rebuilding. Chicago's streets were littered with debris, but people cleared paths, salvaged homes, and reunited with family.
In Tokyo, engineers restored power grids. In Paris, survivors turned to the remnants of their government and institutions to organize relief and rebuild governance. Humanity was bruised, scarred, and broken, but unbowed. Lee Seung-gwin stood on a ridge overlooking the desert base, the horizon stretching endlessly before her. She watched the sun rise in slow, deliberate brilliance. "Do you think they'll ever come back?" she asked quietly, mostly to herself. Emily joined her, the weight of responsibility evident in her posture.
"I don't know. But if they do, we'll be ready.
We know now that arrogance can be exploited, that ingenuity and courage can turn the impossible against those who think themselves invincible." Michael arrived with a report of the aftermath from the satellites, his voice subdued but steady.
"Damage assessments are coming in.
Survivors are organizing.
And there's something else.
Other civilizations, beyond what we've ever detected, are scanning the aftermath.
They've noticed what we've done." Emily's eyes narrowed. "They've seen humanity strike back. They'll think twice before underestimating us."
In the weeks that followed, memorials arose in every surviving city. 10 million names etched in steel, stone, and digital archives.
Families lit candles in remembrance. Schools taught the story not only of loss but of resilience.
The broadcast that had begun with horror became, in memory, a testament to courage. Children who had survived or were born in its shadow learned that even in the darkest moments, humanity could defy extinction.
The Phoenix Protocol was secured deep underground, its technology studied, replicated, and guarded. Governments established rapid response units for interstellar threats.
Humanity had glimpsed the vastness and indifference of the cosmos, but it had also glimpsed its own potential. The Wraith may have believed humans were a virus to be eradicated, but humanity had proved it was a force unpredictable and unrelenting. Emily Parker, standing at the edge of the desert, felt the enormity of it all pressing on her.
The lives lost, the cities destroyed, the broadcast witnessed by billions, these were indelible marks on human history. But they were also proof of survival, proof of the species' indomitable will.
In the void of space where the Wraith had hovered, there was nothing now but silence.
No ships. No broadcasts. No threats. Their arrogance had been their undoing.
And though the cosmos remained vast and mysterious, humanity had claimed a victory not of conquest, but of survival, ingenuity, and courage.
Emily looked back toward the base, the rising sun illuminating the steel and stone structures, a symbol of human tenacity.
Somewhere out there, other eyes might be watching, curious, cautious, or perhaps calculating. But humanity had a message now: underestimate us at your peril. The world would heal slowly.
Cities would rebuild.
Societies would reconstruct themselves around lessons learned from unimaginable horror. But one truth remained unshakable: when faced with extinction, humanity had struck back, and nothing would ever erase the memory of that defiance. And as Emily Parker turned her gaze to the horizon, she allowed herself a small, rare smile. Against impossible odds, against a species that had killed 10 million lives on live broadcast, humanity had not only survived, it had risen. The broadcast of terror had ended, but the story of survival had only just begun.